Boys and girls run down these aisles and halls and outside, and we're excited to see who God's going to send. We're excited to see what God's going to do in their lives this week. Also excited to see if there's one lost, see if it's saved this week. So I asked, first of all, you volunteers, I hope you've been praying, I hope you're ready. If you're not going to be here, if you're going to be at home, be praying. But I hope you'll be here tonight. There'll be adult Bible school also all week. But yeah, be praying, please. Pray this week goes, and we glorify God this week, and everything goes to His will this week. Be praying for all the workers, the kiddos, everybody involved, safety on the buses are traveling around, picking up folks. So just be praying all. And with that, if you can be here around 5 o'clock tonight, the workers for a meeting, and get everything ready, get everybody set, make sure we got everything we need, and everybody's in their place. And then if you can, those of you that can stay directly after service this morning, we need to clean all this off, and then we've got, you've seen the FedEx truck outside, it's packed full of decorations. So we've got to get that unloaded and set up. So weak minds, strong backs. That's what we're looking for. So if you can stay around and help us, we sure would appreciate it. That way we get it done and get it knocked out. And don't forget, Awana starts back next Sunday night, the 19th already. Awana is starting back, so be praying for that and get ready for it. And then next Wednesday night, the 22nd, we will not have service here. It'd be down at the Catawba County Baptist meeting. It's off Providence Mill Road. So church will be moved down there next Wednesday night, so it will not be here. And then you see the sign in the note there about the Sunday the 19th, the evening, the meeting about the cruise. If you have any questions about it, just come to the meeting. And then Grandparents' Day on September the 9th. Invite your grandparents that day. And, food and everything right after service. If you have any questions about it, see CJ, he'll fill you in. I believe that's all I had. No visitation this Tuesday night or next Tuesday night because it can't be. So it'll be after, it'll be 2 weeks. Thank you.
Be encouraged, as he said, because of Bible school and things of that nature, do the adult Bible study during Bible school. So I want to encourage you to be here. It just starts at 6:30, not 6 o'clock tonight. So if you come back tonight for services at 6 o'clock, just be mindful that Bible school doesn't start till 6:30. The adult Bible study doesn't start until 6:30 also. So a little bit later this afternoon. Get you 30 more minutes of God-ordained nap this afternoon. And then, of course, on Wednesday nights, as he said, we'll not have regular service. They'll be in here and all of that. So just be mindful of that. But you can come every single night to adult Bible study. We want to encourage you to do that. And then on Thursday night, as we've mentioned before, want to mention again, I want to invite the whole entire church out for Thursday night, the family night. Now, most of us don't have any business getting on the big slide and the bouncy houses and all of that, but because of some of the things that we're doing different this year with the food cart, the one that has the cotton candy and the cotton candy, peanuts, popcorn, funnel cake finger thingies or whatever. It's good, but it's not good for you. But it is good. And then we'll have Pelican snowballs. So we got all kinds of reasons to come out. No better place to fellowship than that. And somebody said, well, I believe the Old Soldiers Reunion Parade is that afternoon. Listen, it'll get over with, and you can come on out immediately after that and enjoy Pelicans. You can drive right by the Pelicans over in Newton and come over here, and it won't cost you anything. So, we'd love to have you come be a part of that. That'll be from 6:30 to 8:30, so we'll have a good time. And there's always one adult that thinks they're younger than they really are. And that's when you get your phone out and make it YouTube and Facebook worthy. So anyway, and I'm not going to be that one, I can promise you that. But we'd love to have you come be a part of that. All right, who had a birthday this past week? Anybody have a birthday? I'm not 100% sure anybody did. Who did?
She's hiding. I don't know if she's there. Yeah, she said tonight.
Trish? Where's she? Oh, she's downstairs? Oh, okay. She's in children's church. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. How about anniversary this week? Anybody have anniversary? All right. Buckaloos. How many years, brother?
3 years.
3 years. Wonderful. All right. Still practically newlyweds. Amen. All right. Anybody else? Birthday, anniversary? All right.
Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary to you. Happy anniversary, God bless you. Happy anniversary to you.
Let's all stand for Tom Phillip. Nope. I'm tired.
update on some of the things the good Lord's done for her. And it's always a blessing when you can share the goodness of God. So, share your heart.
Okay, as many of you know, last Saturday, me and Karen and Terry left to go to Bethesda. I was so weak that I couldn't even stand hardly. I went by the house and just climbing the steps, I about fell. It was all I could do to go lay down just for a second. But anyway, we went up to Bethesda. I slept all the way up there. I don't remember the trip. When we got there, I stayed in bed. They brought me back something to eat. I ate just a little bit, and then we went to sleep. Sunday, I stayed in bed all day Sunday. I just didn't have the strength to get up. Went downstairs to have breakfast. I ate a couple bites, and I told them, I said, I gotta go back and lay down. So got ready Monday morning, had to be at the hospital at 6:30 that morning, and we went there, and they registered me. They were supposed to admit me to the hospital. I was supposed to have been there until Thursday. So they said that since I was on a low-dose aspirin, they couldn't do the biopsies that they were wanting to do. So they would just do the CT scan, the kidney function test, and a few other tests that they could do. And we were supposed to go back up today so they could start the biopsies and everything tomorrow. Well, I didn't pass protocol because of my kidney functions. So that knocked me out of it. But they said, if you do these few things, then we'll bring you back up here today, and then they'll start the test tomorrow. One of them was that I needed to lower my fluid pills. I needed an echocardiogram. They said possible blood transfusion to get my kidney functions, you know, to where they were at the right levels. So we came home Tuesday, and Dr. Orlowski, the doctor, had come and called Dr. Orlowski on Monday, and Tuesday on our way home, his office called me and told me that they already had all my appointments set up, that they had, you know, they had everything. They gave me the dates and time to be there. So Wednesday, I went and had the echocardiogram done. Thursday, I went and had the kidney function test and the blood transfusion. They did that Thursday afternoon. And then Friday, we went to see Dr. Orlowski to get the results back. Well, everything came back perfect, you know, so I was good to go back up to Bethesda today. So Dr. Orlowski's PA was getting ready to go walk out the door and call Bethesda to tell them that I would be there today. And all of a sudden, he saw this report on my record, and he told him to wait a minute. And he read the report, and he says, this is a game changer. And me and Karen looked at him and said, for the good or for the bad? And he said, it's for the best. It's for good. And so he said what happened was they, back in June, they had sent off some of the tissue that they had biopsied so they could pinpoint where the cancer was coming from. And he said, they told me then that once they found out that, then they could target those specific areas. So that's what he did, and it came back that my cancer was what he called BRAF, which is where the cells are mutating. And he said, we can treat that here. He said, there's a drug, a pill form that you can take that will treat it here. But I think that the way I think was the Lord sent us to Bethesda to find out all this stuff that was going on with me that I didn't know, and they didn't know down here why I was getting weaker and weaker. And that's what it took. I had to go up there. But he came back and he said, when he said this is a game changer, he said Bethesda is just fishing. He said, I'm using a rifle. He said, so this, you know, and he was really happy, and it excited me because now I don't have to go back to Bethesda. You know, because I start treatment in the morning. I go for my education on the pill I have to take. And I started in the morning, and I go see him in 2 weeks. He said he knows this drug works because there was a man that had a tumor under his arm the size of a softball. And he said that they started him on that drug, and within a week, it was gone. gone. So I just praise the Lord, you know, it was all the Lord that did it. You know, and I just can't thank him enough, and I appreciate everybody's prayers, and I hope that you continue to pray for me through the process, because, you know, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I know prayer works, and I thank God for it. So I just wanted to give y'all an update, you know, on what's going on, so I don't have to leave home anymore.
Heard my heart cry. Amen. Before you stand for the reading of God's Word, as you turn to Psalm 78, Lord Barna has done plenty of studies. USA Today has done studies and things of that nature. And the reality is that we live in a society that on average between 70 and 80% of every child that you see in this room, when they turn the age of 18, will very quickly leave the church. It's 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, somewhere in that range. Those are not fictitious numbers. Those are hard, cold facts that they are. What is the problem? We are living in a society today where the reality is that we are not teaching young people, matter of fact, we're not even teaching adults, for the most part, that those that come against them, those that are atheistic, and those that are skeptics of the belief in the Lord Jesus Christ, we're not teaching them to come and to fight back, so to speak. I'm not talking about physically fighting. I'm talking about knowing the Word of God to the point at where they know enough to be able to combat that. Understanding this, though, it doesn't get any better when we send them off to the colleges and universities. Understand that professors are 5 times more likely than a normal citizen to be an atheist. 5 times more likely to be an atheist. We also, once again, are not equipping them to resist those that are rabidly anti-Christian. Matter of fact, the biggest majority of the study in Free Republic says that over half of the college professors view evangelical or Christian young people unfavorably. Those are not good stats. I don't know if you're listening to that, but those are not good stats. Right. So what is the problem? How do we combat that? Because the truth of the matter is that every generation has a responsibility, the generation coming up behind them, to teach them and to pass along to them the fundamentals of the faith, the belief in the Lord Jesus Christ. And so our responsibility is that. Where is the disconnect then? And that is what the topic of this morning's message is the next generation. And the 78th Psalm tells us about some of that, and hopefully we will listen with an open heart and an intent. I will tell you this right up front this morning. The first service was very quiet at times. Very quiet at times. So I want us to listen. I don't want us to shut down. I want us to listen with an open mind and an open heart, such that the Lord can deal with us and work on us. If you do have your Bible or are able to, would you stand for the reading of God's Word? The 78th Psalm. We'll read verses 1 through 8. It says, "Give ear, O my people, to my law, incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth, in a parable I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and His strength, and His wonderful works that He hath done. For He established a testimony in Jacob, and appointed a law in Israel, which He commanded our fathers, that they should make them known to their children, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in God, and not forget the works of God, but keep the commandments. Might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God." I want to preach to you this morning about the next generation. Let's pray. Father, we do love you. We do thank you for the many blessings of life. Father, I pray that you would help us to see this morning how critical it is that we pass on some things to our young people. Good things, not the bad. My goodness, Lord, would you help us? I pray that you'd lead us, you'd guide us, you'd direct us, save that sinner nearest hell. And Father, I pray that you would help us today. In Jesus' name, amen. When you look at the 78th Psalm, you have to understand, to begin with, that it's giving this history here of the nation of Israel, and talks about how they went through this and they went through that. Talks about the cloud by day and cloud by day and fire by night. Go over to verse number 39, and it talks about, for he remembered that they were but flesh, kind of reminiscent of the 103rd Psalm, verse number 14, where it talks about, for he knoweth our frame, he remembered that we are dust, and talks about how we do things and how we don't listen to God and all of that. But he made them, or he told them, listen, even though this is not flattering to you, even though this is not something that you really want to brag about, and you don't, the reality is, though, it is our responsibility to tell and to let it be known that if we do things that we shouldn't do, as God commanded here, he said that heard and known and our fathers have told, we will not hide them from our children. He's basically saying you need to teach them that this is what you shouldn't do. But I submit to you this morning that not only do we say this is not what we should do, but also that you and I pass on to the next generation things that we should do. In other words, so that we don't have to see in times to come another generation that is lost. Because it is our responsibility to help the next generation, to pass on the spiritual things, to pass on the things that will help them more than anything else in this world. And I think that's a given. I think it's fair to say and fair to expect out of the generation, and whether it's me and me passing on to my children, or in times to come to pass on to my children's children, or even in your case, the same thing, that we are to help the next generation by telling them the things. But there's a problem. We've got to be able to talk about spiritual things. We've got to be able to know spiritual things. We've got to know about Jesus. We've got to know about God. We've got to know the things of the Word of God. And that is where we want to park for a little while this morning. Because he gives us the prescription here. He tells us some things that we need to remember. He tells us some things that we need to reveal. And he even tells us what the results will be. But unfortunately, many times we don't listen. So I want us to look through this passage of Scripture this morning in hopes that it will help the next generation. If you will, notice with me in verses 1 through 3 that how we pass these things on is to remember the truth. Look at verse number 3, if you will. He says, or verse 2, I will open my mouth in a parable, I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. Now, he's talking about the nation of Israel and all of that, and the things that were done wrong, and the way that God led them and guided them and directed them. And may I say this and submit to you today that God still leads, God still directs, God still opens the way, God still closes the door, and all of those things in our lives. He still does that on a daily basis. But what we want us to understand this morning is that he is rehearsing in their ears some of the dark sayings, as it says, that were. But I don't want to dwell on the dark sayings. I don't want to dwell on those things because I want to put it to you in this sense. The reality is that they had been told, they had been learned these things. Their fathers and their mothers had told them all of these dark sayings. Our problem in the church is that we're not even telling them the good sayings. We're not telling them the things that are good and things of that nature. In other words, these people that were passing these on, verse 3 tells us they had heard and known, and to get us to see this morning is that we're not passing on the goodness of God. We're not telling them about those kind of things. If anything, for the most part, the God that we say that we love and that we serve is not the same God that they read about and they study about. What do you say that for, preacher? Because the way that we live our lives out there is not the way that we live our lives in here. Do you understand what I'm saying? In other words, it is very easy for you and I to be Christian in the confines of these walls. It's easy for us to go, amen, praise the Lord. It's easy for us to say, boy, God is good. It's easy for us to throw out Christian cliches and all of them. God answers the email. My God is awesome. God is good. And you repeat back all the time and all of those things. And I'm not belittling and I'm not making any light of any of that. But my friend, I will say to you and to I this morning, it's easy to swap stories in here. But the reality of serving God starts outside of these walls. Anybody can come in here and put a King James Bible under their arm. Anybody can throw a suit and a tie on. Anybody can come in here and stand up straight and do all of those things. But the real test of your character, the real test of your Christianity comes outside of these walls. And my question to you is, what kind of a story are you telling? What kind of a story are you repeating to your young people? Let me ask you a question. Do you even have a story to tell? What do you mean a story to tell? Can you share with your son or daughter? Can you share with your teenage boy or teenage girl? Can you share with your grandson or granddaughter? Can you share with your grown children that there's been a time in your life where you were lost, but now you're found? Do they know that? Is there a time that you can share with them that God has answered prayer? My fear is that we don't tell our kids enough. Now, if it comes to repeating sports figures or the batting lineup or who's in position number 2 out on the volleyball court or about hitting the softball or about whatever it may be and whatever hobby you may have, I think they know that and I think they can repeat that up one side and down the other. But my question to you is do they remember the truth? Do they know the stories and the goodness of God? In other words, when was the last time that you told your son or daughter about how good God had been to you? That's right. I'm not talking about dealing in generalities. Oh, God is good. No, I'm talking about telling specifics about how God's been good to you. I'm talking about dealing in specifics about how He's answered this prayer or that prayer or something of that nature. About telling them how God affected your life. About how God dealt with your heart during the message. About how God dealt with you in your daily Bible reading. What kind of a story are you telling them? Because if we don't tell them, they're not going to know it, and if they don't know it, they're not going to hold to it as the times get dark. Right. See, the problem is that we remember everything else, and the writer of the song here says, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I mean, aren't we supposed to help the next generation? That's right. And so we look at this, and he says that they had heard it and known it. In other words, they knew it. And I wonder how many times our kids don't have a clue. I wonder how many times our adult children don't have a clue. I wonder how many times our grandkids don't have a clue. In other words, what are you getting at, preacher? Do they know what God has done in your heart? The good, the bad, and the ugly. The reality is that, let's be honest, parents, there are times that we fail our children. That's right. And then we wonder why they roam. We wonder why they don't stick to the God that we love or we say that we love. We wonder why they get off the beaten path and things of that nature. We wonder why. And the reality is that the God that we say we love is same God they hear about in Sunday school, and the same God that they read about in the Bible.
Yeah, bless him, Lord.
This is where it got quiet this morning. Because we live one way and we talk another. It's the same principle. Listen, it's the same principle of somebody that's walking around and they've got a cigarette in one hand and they're telling their kids with the other breath. Now listen, I'm telling you right now, don't you ever let me catch you smoking.
Yeah, preacher, go ahead, amen. Yeah. That's right.
What you're saying and what you're preaching is two different things.
Amen.
That's the same thing as going over here to Walmart after church and walking down the beer and the wine aisle and going down through there, and you got little Johnny and little Susie walking along, tagging along behind you with them impressionable eyes, and your 7 or 8 year old son is there beside of you, and you're walking down through there, and you look at him and you say, I'm going to tell you right now, kids, don't ever let me catch you messing with this stuff. Little Johnny, could you reach over and get Mom a little case of Coors Light?
Go ahead, preacher. Yeah, that's right.
It don't add up. So when the preacher gets up and says, hey, y'all to tell everybody about Jesus, y'all to be in church on Sunday morning and Sunday night and Wednesday night, and you go, amen, and then you're right here on Sunday night, Wednesday night, your son or daughter's looking up going,
Yeah, that's right, preacher.
hello?
Amen.
In other words, we're telling them a story. We're not telling them the truth. We're trying to get them to remember something that's not there. Our kids know better. By the way, your friends and co-workers know too. I mean, I know we can relate this. By the way, the greatest story you can ever tell your kids is that one day there was a day when you were blind, but now you see.
That's right.
There was a day that I was lost, but now I'm found. There was a day when I was sinking in the muck and the mire of this world, and Jesus came along and reached way down and lifted me up and put my feet on the solid ground, and thank God I got saved.
Yes, amen.
I believe with all of my heart, if we'd start living a little more consistent and a little bit more and remembering the truth and sharing with them. You know what? Our kids know we're not perfect.
That's right.
They know that. They know that. My kids know I failed them. They saw me have to turn around and say things. That leads me to the second part. Remember the truth. But number 2 is we've got to reveal the truth. Look at what they said in verse number 4. The writer says what? We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and His strength and His wonderful works that He hath done. In other words, they're saying, we're not going to hide it. We're not going to hide the good, the bad, and the ugly. If I blow it, I'm going to tell it. I'm going to reveal it. Spiritually speaking, it's the responsibility of the generations to share with the next generation. Not every day. See, the problem is that you and I have got to be honest. Anybody else in here ever blow it? Oh, man. Don't we? Don't we blow it sometimes? I mean, the reality is that we blow it. And our children know that. And then we walk around like this.
Yeah.
And they're looking at us and they're thinking, well, that ain't what I saw the other night.
That's right.
That ain't what I saw the other day, Dad. And we've got to reveal to them the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, I understand, parents. There are some things our children don't need to know. Say amen.
Amen.
I mean, there are some things. But when you blow it and they're looking right at you, but he says to reveal the truth. Remember. In other words, there's a story that we've got to tell. And then secondly, we reveal the truth to them. In other words, what's Proverbs 22:6 say? Train up a child the way he goes, and when he's old, will not depart from it. So in other words, we've got to train them. We've got to understand that God loves them. Grace, mercy, all of these things that we're to live right, do right, talk right, smell right, walk right, all these things right. But you know what? God's dealing with broken vessels.
Amen.
I mean, that's why we go back in the part I read to you, verse number 39, where he says, For he remembered that they were but flesh.
Yeah.
The 103rd Psalm, verse 14 says, For he knoweth our frame. He remembered that we are dust. You can't put much expectation on a bunch of flesh and dust.
That's right.
That's what we are. But we can explain that to them and reveal that to them. You know what? Truth of the matter is, and I'm not talking about going into all the gory details and all of that, but you know what? Your daddy hadn't always been saved. But thank God Jesus loved me and died for me.
Amen.
Does your kids know? Does your kids know that? Because, listen, they're being embraced by people out in this world that don't love Jesus. They don't care about Jesus. As a matter of fact, parents, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but they don't care about you either.
That's right.
They don't care what you've taught your kids. They don't care what you've done.
That's right.
That's why I thank God for some of the people that I know that are school teachers and all of that love these kids and teach them the best way they can and all of that, because there's some people, they just don't care.
Amen.
And it gets worse when they get out into the world. Amen.
That's right.
And we're losing them by the droves. And why is that? I had one parent one time, God bless them out there, that love them to death. No, don't look around in here, because it wasn't here. Every time I say something like that, everybody starts saying, "Who it is?" I had a parent years ago when I was working in youth ministry. This was their response to me. Well, preacher, you know, he did turn 18. You know, we got to let them go so they can sow their wild oats, and then hopefully they'll come back someday. That's almost verbatim what that fella said to me. I looked at him. I made him mad. I said, "Can you tell me where it says that in the Bible? Can you show me where that is?" I don't know about you, but I'm not going to give my kids over to the devil. I'm not going to give your kids over to the devil.
Amen.
Matter of fact, I'm not going to give any of you adults over to the devil. If you start going down a pathway, me and everybody else in this church is going to try our dead level best to get you stopped.
Amen.
And that's what we're supposed to do. And so we're to remember the truth, we're to reveal the truth, and then lastly, he gives us the results of the truth. If you fight the fight, if you have a story to tell, a good story, and I'm not talking about some made-up story. I'm talking about how good God's been and things of that nature. Sometimes how bad it has been or you've done. Then look at verses 6, 7, and 8. I'll show you this, and then we'll flip it when we'll take place. When the next generation is taught, then look what happens. Look at verse number 6. That the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them their children. Verse 7. It says that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep His commandments. It might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart right, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God. Five things in those 3 verses that he gives. Number 1, if you look in verse number 6, it says that it'll help to teach our children. Everybody's teaching your kids.
That's right.
Your kids are in classroom every day. Well, they're not back in school, preacher. Oh, they're in class.
Yeah.
They're in class. Can I tell you this? If you leave here and go to Walmart, they're in class.
Yeah.
Amen. When you're driving down the road, they're in class. When you're in line at Carol Inn's and it's hot, you're frustrated and all aggravated, they're in class.
Amen.
When you're walking around and just your day-to-day conversation, and you and your wife are carried on a conversation, maybe good, maybe bad. Oh, I'm still driving, I'm sorry. They're in class. They're in class. They're always. When you get up in the morning and you're sitting around the breakfast table When you're sitting in front of the television,
That's right.
they're in class.
Amen.
They're in class all day long. When they're sitting there watching TV and you're not around, they're in class. We've got to teach our children. And it'll help. It'll help them. First part of verse number 7. Number 1, it'll teach our children. Number 2, it'll give them hope. It says that they might set their hope in God. If we share with them, if we remember the truth, we have something to tell them, and we tell them and reveal that to them, then the result is that they see that hope. The Jesus that we preach about and the Jesus that they live is the same. The problem is they're not the same for a lot of people. And so they're looking and they're like, my mom and daddy in the Bible, it's just a bunch of fairy tales anyway. No big deal. Why do I need that? But it'll give them hope. By the way, that's what this world needs.
Amen.
My hope is built on what? Nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but only lean on Jesus' name.
That's right.
On Christ the solid rock I stand, all other sinking sand. Our hope is in the Lord Jesus Christ. If it's not, if yours is not, then you need to be saved.
Amen, preacher. That's exactly right.
They need hope. That's why they're out here doing everything. That's why adults are doing everything. I mean, I put a thing. I don't deal much with Facebook, but I was watching some video somebody posted the other day, and it was talking about the opioid thing. While we've been sitting here, we've been in this room now for 1 hour, 60 minutes. There's been 6 people die of opioid addiction. 6 people. And when we'll be here for another 10 minutes. By the time we let out, that'll be a 7th person. Does anybody else see that as a problem? That's just opioids. That's not everything else. That's just opioids. What is the problem? They're searching for something. Do you know what? We have the answer to those problems. That's the Lord Jesus Christ. I mean, I hope you agree with that. If you don't, I'm trying to figure out what in the world you're doing sitting here this morning listening to a guy foaming at the mouth and jumping around and screaming and hollering at you. Amen?
Amen.
Teach the children, give them hope. Number 3, second part of verse number 7, and not forget the works of God. If you'll keep your kids around the works of God and you'll live a consistent life, they'll remember that. There's something powerful about a lady who's fighting for her life that gets up here in front of us, and by today's society, I mean, you think about it. I mean, Donna's been fighting cancer for a long time. But you know what? She gave God the glory.
That's right.
And that's what we want our children to see. That's why it's important that you come to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. 3, they don't forget the works. Number 4, last part of verse number 7, but keep His commandments. The result is that they learn. The result is they put their hope in God. The third thing is that they see the works of God and they don't forget them. The fourth thing is that they follow His commandments. By the way, when you see the hand of God, it's a whole lot easier for you to obey His commandments. When you see how good God is. The problem with a lot of times is why people don't. It's because they're not close to God. And so they get out here in the world, and the world is very attractive. And it is. The Bible even talks about sin's fun for a season. And it is. What happened to Lot? He looked at the well-watered plains of Jordan. His eyes sees that. It's a whole lot easier to follow God's commandments when you're seeing the hand of God. What does that mean, preacher? Stay in church. Be around people that are obeying. I mean, you can give your life to sports, you can give your life to the racetrack, you can give your life to work, you can give your life to all those things. And I know some of those things are very important. But you don't sacrifice the next generation at the altar of a race car. You don't sacrifice at the altar of a ball club. You don't sacrifice it at a job. You don't sacrifice it in a hobby. You don't do that.
Right.
You just don't do that. And then you wonder, what in the world's happened? They're one of the 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 that leave the church. What happened, preacher? You didn't live a life of consistency. And then lastly, as far as this, verse number 8. I love this verse. And might not be as their fathers. Oh, okay, they won't be like their fathers. But he goes one step further. Look what he calls their fathers. A stubborn and rebellious generation. A generation that set not their heart aright and whose spirit was not steadfast with God. Ouch. Ouch. How would you like to be referred to by God as a stubborn and rebellious person? Wow. Now I might look at you and go, well, doggone, you're just a stubborn person. You might punch me in the nose for saying that. But we're talking about the very creator and sustainer, the creator of this world and sustainer of life. Looks at it and says, you know, you're stubborn and rebellious. Oh. And he don't lie. So they must be stubborn and rebellious. Of course, you can read the rest of the psalm and you can find out real quick that they're stubborn and rebellious. Let me ask you a question, moms and dads. How many of you, by show of hands, want to be referred to by God as stubborn and rebellious? Nobody? Nobody? Then why are we? Why are we? Because here's what the result of that is. If you will turn over to Judges chapter number 2. We'll go home here in a minute. Judges chapter number 2. Judges chapter number 2. Because here's what happens. If we will remember, if we will reveal the truth, then those are the things that will happen. That it'll teach our children. They'll learn. They'll set their hope in God. They'll not forget the words of God. They'll follow the commandments of God. They'll do better than their fathers. And by the way, most of us, if not all of us, want our kids to do better than we do. I want my kids to be better Christians than I am. I want them, I know we talk about money, but I want my son to be a better Christian. I want my daughter to be a better Christian than me. I do. I don't want her to fail in some of the ways that I have. I don't want him to fail in some of the ways that I have. Well, look at Judges chapter number 2 and verse number 10. Actually, let's start back at verse number 7. And the people served the Lord all the days of Joshua and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua, who had seen all the great works of the Lord that he did for Israel. And Joshua the son of Nun, the servant of the Lord, died, being 110 years old. And they buried him in the border of his inheritance, Timnath-Heres, and the mount of Ephraim, on the north side of the hill Gaash. And also all that generation were gathered under their fathers. Stop. Okay. Fair enough. Joshua's generation died. Passed off the sword. But then look what happened after that. Another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor yet the works which he had done for Israel. The next generation didn't know that. What happened? They didn't pass it along. They didn't pass it along. They did not remember. They did not reveal. They did have a story to tell, but they didn't tell it. And so, because of that, they lived however they wanted to, and that leads up, if you go to the end of it, you don't have to turn there, but I'll read it to you, Judges chapter 21 and verse number 25. You don't have to turn there. You know the verse. In those days there was no king in Israel, and what? Every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Guess what kind of a world we're living in right now?
Yeah.
We're here. We're here. So what are we supposed to do, preacher? Throw up our hands and quit and just wait till Jesus comes back? No. No. In every aspect of Christianity, in everything in the Word of God, you'll always find where there was a remnant. This morning when the invitation is given, there'll be some that care. There'll be some that will say, you know what, I don't care what anybody thinks. I'm going to come down to the altar and I'm going to pray. And I'm going to ask God, listen, help me to pass on the story. Help me to remember what God has done to me. Help me to reveal it to them so that the results will be that I'm going to fight for my kids. I'm going to do everything I can. And I'm not going to let the devil have them for nothing. And then there'll be others that will be like, no big deal. No big deal. It's no big deal. You say, preacher, you trying to poke me and prod me and come down to the altar? No. You do what God tells you to do. But my point is that we, a lot of times, we have to make that choice. You have to make that choice for your family and your kids. I can't do that. I can't do that at all. So what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it this morning? I mean, that's the reality. Are you going to stand in the gap for your kids? Are you going to stand in the gap for the kids that you teach in Sunday school? Are you going to stand in the gap for the kids that you deal with at school? Are you going to stand in the gap for the people that you work with? Are you going to stand in the gap for your grandkids? What are you going to do? What are you going to do this morning? I can't answer that for you. But I can tell you this. You'd be a lot better off. We'd be a lot better off if we would remember, know them and told them. If we would reveal them, share it with them, the good, the bad, the ugly. And let the results be as God wants you. Because we don't want to continue down the road of every man doing that which was right in his own eyes. Because we can't keep going down this road.
Right.
We can't. People are dying and going to hell on a daily basis. People are dying. Do we even care? Father, we do love you. Thank you for your blessing and